There was once a man who had 3 sons. The first son was very handsome and very talented, for he could play the fiddle with his feet.
The boy will make a fortune doing that someday.
The second son was very strong and very wise, and he could recite clever verse while holding huge weights above his head.
Out of the blue, a cockatoo flew. Boop, boop, beep, doo.
Beautiful. The boy will be famous someday.
But the third son was not a bit like his brothers, for he was a dullard and he was very lazy.
Come in out of the rain, son.
Yeah, what for?
For a while. The boy will never amount to a hill of beans.
Thank goodness. Who wants to be an old hill of beans?
Then one day the old man decided that it was time for his sons to go out into the world and make their fortunes. So he gave each of them some sour cheese, stale bread, and a cookie, and bid them farewell. The first son paused by a shady tree for his midday meal. He was about to eat his sour cheese, stale bread, and the cookie when a funny little man with a long beard and a crooked nose came up to him and said,
I am very hungry, young man. Would you share your meal with me?
No. I need this, though, to keep up my strength so that I can play the fiddle with my feet.
And so saying, he gobbled his food and set off down the road. A short time later, the second son paused by the tree to eat his midday meal when...
Pardon me, young man, but...
No! I need this food to keep up my strength so I can hold heavy weights over my head while reciting clever verse.
Then the third son came up to the shade of the old tree.
This resembles a fine spot to rest and have my midday meal. Gee, what a mess.
Pardon me, young man, but I am very hungry and...
You are? Good. Then you eat this.
You mean you'll let me have your sour cheese, stale bread, and cookie?
Sure, I may be dull, but I'm not crazy enough to eat that stuff, you know.
The funny little man was delighted, and he gave the young man an axe and instructed him to cut down the old tree. Then he scurried away. The dullard did as the funny little man had told him and chopped down the tree.
Timber! Ooh, that's smart.
And there, to the amazement of the young man, was a golden goose in the stump of the tree.
I'm rich.
He tied a string around the golden goose's neck and quickly headed for the village. He'd gone but a short distance when he met a wealthy merchant.
Well, I see you have a golden goose there.
Yeah, you'll have to admit, it's something you don't see every day.
I should like to have one of its golden feathers. Would you sell one to me for, say, a nickel?
A nickel? Certainly.
Then a strange thing happened, for when the merchant touched the goose's tail to pluck a feather, his hand stuck tight, and he couldn't let go.
Don't some of the darndest things happen in fairy tales?
And the lad continued on his way with the hapless merchant stuck behind. They'd not gone far where they met a robber who waved his sword and shouted,
Oh, you've got a golden goose, which is something you don't see every day, and I'm gonna steal it.
Be my guest.
But when the robber grabbed the merchant to pull him away from the goose, his hand stuck tight, and the young man went on his way. When they reached the village, the sheriff saw the robber who was stuck to the merchant who was stuck to the goose, and he also stuck tight. And so it went until an hour later, no less than 206 people were stuck behind the boy and his goose. Now it so happened that the king had a beautiful daughter that never laughed. But when she looked out of the castle window and saw the long procession stuck behind the goose, she broke into gales of laughter. Upon seeing this, the king rushed to the young man with the goose and happily proclaimed,
You've made my daughter laugh, and therefore you shall marry her.
Well, now, that is a good idea, but it's going to be a little crowded, isn't it?
So the king called the castle wise man to solve the problem.
Do not worry, your highness. I can make them all let go with the 17 magic words. Now, everybody who doesn't want to spend the rest of his life in the dungeon, raise his hand.
The problem was solved, and so they were married. Now, ordinarily, any young man who has a golden goose and is lucky enough to marry a princess would surely live happily ever after. But such was not the case in this case. Oh, no.
Because of that dratted goose, I'll be henpecked for the rest of my life, and that's for the birds.
So remember, dear friends, if you ever meet a funny little man with a long beard and a crooked nose, don't give him your sour cheese, stale bread, and a cookie, or your goose is cooked.